First of all, it is a belief of mine, leadership is about taking responsibility for one's actions. And I agree with Governor Cuomo's decision to resign. It is a personal decision and one that he made, and I agree with that decision today. I do think resignation will hopefully prevent any further trauma to the women who came forward. I think they've had enough up to this point, and I hope that this will prevent that from happening. Second point I want to make is that I fully support incoming Governor Kathy Hochul. I've known Kathy Hochul for many, many years. She is a friend and a colleague and someone who I have great respect for, I've worked with in the past. I think we are looking forward to a new day here. I'm proud of the fact that she has been on the ground in her career. She comes from local government. She has served in Congress. She served as lieutenant governor for the last 7 years. She's had many different levels. And I do believe her experience on the ground and connected in many different areas to people throughout the state is important as she moves forward. I'm also very proud that the incoming governor is from upstate New York. And I do think upstate needs to have a representative there. And I think lieutenant governors historically have been representatives for upstate. Now we have a governor who is from upstate. And I think that will serve her very well with her experiences downstate, but also growing up in Buffalo and her background, as I mentioned before, which I think is great. And again, we support her. We look forward to helping her be successful in any way. And I think that we're going to get back to the most important thing, and that is doing the people's business. So sorry for that. It's, my statement is out there. Please refer to that, and I'll take any questions.
Hey, Randy, go right ahead.
Great. Thanks, Bob. Thank you for making some time available. I know you were only a lieutenant governor for one term, but at least the news conferences I covered over the years, Governor Cuomo was always very, praised the relationship you guys had. How do you feel? What's your reaction today? I mean, does this tarnish his complete legacy? What do you actually, aside from what you just said about obviously how these women have been hurt, how do you feel about his legacy as governor of New York and your relationship with him?
Well, I will say this. I was treated extremely well during my 4 years with the government and administration. It was my decision to serve one term and one term only. I did not want to serve 2 terms, and nothing can be read into there. I think in terms of Governor Cuomo's legacy, I think that's for another day to talk about. I certainly can attest to many good things that have happened here in Rochester, many great investments that have been very helpful. But I think for another day that would happy to discuss. But it is not my nature to criticize people publicly. And, I was asked many times, would I call for the governor to resign? I did not do that. And I was very specific in my comments. Not that I in any way condoned what was being alleged. To me, it's a personal decision to make. And, I've worked with the governor. I've known him before he was governor. And I think anyone can realize if you have a friend, a colleague, a coworker who all of a sudden is in trouble or a situation like this, I think that, you are probably reticent to make public comments. I think that's a natural thing. People in politics tend to do it anyway. I tend not to. And I want to be clear, too, that looking at history here, current history in Rochester, we've had public officials and even those in other positions have a variety of issues over the years, some criminal and some not. I have a pretty good history. I've never called for anyone's resignation publicly, but I do agree 100% with the governor's decision today to announce his resignation. I think to me, it is about taking responsibility, but also about preventing any further harm from happening and stopping the hornet's nest of issues going on right now. And people want a sense of normalcy and get back to normal. And incoming Governor Kathy Hochul, I believe, will bring that to get beyond the scandals and all the issues and get to a point of governing and doing the people's business. And I'm pretty confident Kathy will step in very quickly. She's a quick study, very smart, very energetic, and with her experience, I think she will step in and not miss a beat. And I do think for the governor's legacy, that's an important thing to talk about down the road in terms of the many good things that have happened. But I think it'd be inappropriate to take today and discuss those things.
Thanks, Bob.
Okay, News 10 is up next.
Hey, Bob, thanks for taking time. I'm looking to just kind of get your thoughts on some of the things that we heard from the governor today. Kind of one of those things was he's stepping down in the best interest of New Yorkers. And he said he's saving taxpayer money. That was kind of one of the things that he said. So I'm kind of just looking for thoughts, your thoughts on some of the things that, we did hear from him today.
Well, again, the issue about resigning is a very personal decision. The choice was very clear. There's two paths forward, resignation or impeachment. And I think either way was not an easy path either way for the governor to make because of the totality of the circumstances. So given what he did today, it was a good thing. It was a very good thing for New York. And yes, on one hand, there is a savings of money. There's also, it's going to hopefully will temper down some of the attention and the frenzy going on. While there'll still be probably follow-ups in court cases and litigations coming down the road, I would sense, we can get back to what the people's business is in New York State. There's many issues facing here. We have the COVID kind of a resurgence here. We have the state budget is probably being worked on right now, which is a huge issue for governing the state. A lot of challenges, and I do think all these distractions right now go by the wayside and allow incoming Governor Hochul to come in, step in, and bring a sense of normalcy. And it does reflect even some of the things we've seen in the city of Rochester. So I do think that's the positive part. In terms of the women that came forward, I'll go back to my first career. There's a lot of trauma if you were called upon to testify, be cross-examined. And I've been around enough cases in my career of assaults, sexual assaults, harassment, homicides. And when a victim has to come and testify and be cross-examined, it is never easy. So at least in terms of the impeachment process, the governor's resignation stops that right now and it halts it, which I think is a great thing.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay, we'll go next to Spectrum.
Hi, Bob. Thanks for being available to take some questions. I was just kind of want to get your reaction on Kathy Hochul becoming governor. She's going to become the first woman governor and the first governor from Western New York. So what does this mean for Rochester and our region?
Well, first of all, Kathy is a friend, a colleague, and someone I've known for many years. I had the pleasure of even campaigning for her when she ran for Congress. I have worked with Kathy. I've met with Kathy. I know her. I think one of the best things, yes, there's some historical values here. Being the first woman governor is certainly a great milestone for the state, sends a very strong message, especially in terms of many of the situations we've seen over the last year. Number two, she's from upstate New York, which I think has huge significance. It's not somebody from the five boroughs and downstate. I mean, we have different needs, a very different culture, probably much more of a Midwestern culture up here. And to have somebody who is born and raised in Buffalo and Western New York, who understands this area, who's represented upstate region at the local government, on the ground, in Congress, and really has spent a good deal over 7 years on the road around the state. I think she is prepared and poised for this. And my point, and if I could offer one thing, is just keep doing what you're doing. She is very people-oriented. She understands what people on the ground need. That is important. She has to deal with a lot of issues in Albany stepping in. And she goes from, and I've been in that position, lieutenant governor has no statutory authority at all in the state. Your existence and what you do really depends on what the governor and his staff provide you to do. And I was lucky enough to have economic development and learned an incredible amount. Kathy's been around the state, but being lieutenant governor, you go from being on a sideline to now you're the CEO. And Kathy will step in. And in my sense, she is catching up right now with the commissioners and the various agencies. It's a huge business to run the state of New York. And it goes far beyond press conferences and things that are said. It really is about running a major business, which impacts the lives of millions of New Yorkers. So that will be the biggest transition. But again, she brings a local, common, on-the-ground touch to that position. And I'm confident she'll be a quick study. She does not lack energy. She has great brain power. She cares about people. She is tenacious. And everything I've known about Kathy, I would never question her integrity. And I do believe people will like and trust her immediately.
All right, next we'll go to Patty Singer.
Hi, I'm curious, is Hochul able to really accomplish, or is this position more of a placeholder until we get sorted out for the next election cycle?
Well, that's up really to incoming Governor Hochul, her team, and the rest of the state. Because if I were her, I would step in and be going 100 miles an hour on day one, which I think she will, no doubt. So the future politics, I'll leave it up to the politicians and the pundits in Albany and New York City and around the state. The most important thing she can do is get in and do the very best job she can from day one. And I would say the best politics is good government. And having good government, which serves people, which listens to people, which can say yes to things that are important and no to things that are less important, and keep that big machinery moving in the right direction and making sure people are heard and the business of government gets done. That's the most important thing she can do. And she will not lack for energy, hard work, tenacity. She will do all that. And the rest is up to the people of New York. It is my hope, which happens too often in politics, that her work and her efforts does not get undermined or stopped by those who aspire for that position. I think right now, everybody should get behind the governor and the legislature, the incoming governor, Governor Hochul, and the legislature, and get the state back on track and moving. I think we've been through enough, and without casting any other comments, I just think it's time to get back what is important. We are not out of the pandemic yet. And I do think there's been a paralysis with all of these other issues coming up in past months that now I hope in 14 days we could be somewhat free from and focus on our priorities. And that is my hope and expectations. And you cannot predict the future. You can't predict years ago where we are today, and you can't predict what will happen in 18 months. So the most important thing is to do your very best, work honestly, exude integrity and trust and service. And I honestly believe if she does all that and does the things that I believe that Kathy Hochul will do every single day, she can't do any more than that. And the rest is up to the people of the state of New York.
Brian Sharp.
Thank you. Yeah, I was just wondering, I was actually thinking back, not necessarily your lieutenant governor days, but your early days as mayor, and we had just had Midtown funding announced when Elliot Spitzer resigned, and an early on visit from then Governor Patterson was to reassure folks that that was still coming. I know you're not seeing necessarily any big disruptions, but can you talk a little bit about how disruptive this is, or is it at the local government level? It would seem everyone now wants to reestablish whatever the communication lines are or firm up whatever's in process, or is there not much disruption? CEO leaves.
Brad, here's my thought. In a few months, we'll have a new mayor, and in 2 weeks, we'll have a new governor. And I think that both present a new opportunity. So I don't believe there's going to be a stalling of issues or priorities. You have a lot of great leaders in the agencies across New York State, a lot of great employees across the state. All they want to do is a very good job and serve the people. And so I think those projects are going to happen. I don't believe we're going to have any change. And I'll go back when then Governor Spitzer resigned. The incoming Governor Patterson called me the very next day. He was here within a week. And as you remember, we were at Midtown Plaza, and he was reaffirming the state's commitment to give us, I believe it was $55 million in funding to take Midtown Plaza down, which for those that aren't up to that history is the site of Parcel 5 and all the many buildings around the Clinton Main area today. So I do believe that, Governor Patterson did that back then. Governor Cuomo during his time was very supportive of Rochester and the Finger Lakes region. Kathy Hochul is going to be equally supportive, and I can't think of anything that's a priority that will be stopped. We have an abundance of funding coming in right now. I think the biggest issue is where that money will go, how it will be spent. And if you listen to the Lieutenant Governor during her many travels around the state, I mean, she's very much in tune with the priorities. She's there all the time. And while she was not constrained by the everyday workings of government as Lieutenant Governor, she was really wide open to travel the state and meet with people. And the most important thing for that job is the people of the state, not so much the function of what goes on in Albany. You work through the mechanism of government. And I do believe the Assembly leadership and the Senate leadership will rally behind her, and it'll be a team effort. And I'm hoping that we see one example after another of teamwork, collaboration, and good government, and hopefully with both sides of the aisle. That's to me the epitome of public service. And you're elected through politics, but once you get in office, you're there to serve the people, not to serve a party. So I'm just looking forward to stability, progress, and get beyond what we've seen the last several months. And I think people want normalcy. They want to get back to their lives. They want to be free of a pandemic, free of all the various crises and scandals and issues going on, and just get back to our lives and really, if anything, have the reputation of our city and our state go back to the prominence where it deserves. And with all the negative stories, it has taken a huge hit over the last year or so, and we deserve much better, and we will get much better.
Go ahead with your second question, Brian.
My other thing was just going back to one thing you had said earlier, talking about sort of giving your law enforcement background on how these things play out and the testifying and your comments in terms of the impeachment process and such. The governor's resignation stops all that. I'm just wondering, one thing then, though, at the end of the day, we still have the governor saying he did nothing wrong and accusers saying he did. And I'm just wondering what you believe.
Well, it's hard to believe anything based on what I see and read in terms of with facts, but the AG's investigation, I think, was pretty thorough. And while there may perhaps the governor's team has some questions about that, I think we'll see this whole process move to the sideline. I sense there probably will be other proceedings, litigations, but it will not take up state government every day. So what happens from here on in goes off to, again, Governor Cuomo steps aside. He's a private citizen in 14 days. That gets rectified in that area. And I can't predict the future. I don't know, but I believe in the system. I believe all facts should come out, and that's something that I sense will happen if there's any disagreement with those facts. But I certainly, we've all seen and heard enough that there's no doubt that the situation that we've been facing and seeing in the news in the last several months certainly was avoidable, to say the least. Avoidable through behaviors and actions, and whatever happens in the future, it's up to the criminal justice system, the civil system, others. But I think the most important thing is in 14 days, we move to a different era here, and we just get that behind us across the state and just focus on making this state, making our cities, our communities stronger, getting out of this COVID and growing the economy, growing jobs, growing people's prosperity, and not having our energy sapped every day by what we're seeing and hearing. And I want justice for everybody involved. That's the most important thing. And I certainly, my facts come from what I read and hear, as I've said previously. At no time did I ever witness, hear of, or have anybody come to me with anything that was untoward or any way related to what we've seen over the last several months. If they did, I can assure you it would have been reported and documented. It was not. I've never been called as a witness for anything. I've never been asked a question by anybody. So my whole connection is what I see and hear. And I do believe whatever things will go forward in terms of proceedings, if they happen. At least I think from the impeachment standpoint, my sense is when a governor resigns, at least the state impeachment process stops. The other things I'm sure do not. But that will be outside of state government, and it's just a time that we can get back on track without casting any comments on anybody. Just get back to the business at hand and let the justice system take care of the rest. But I think we will put this behind us, and I do believe incoming Governor Hochul has been very clear on her comments so far, very clear on her issues. And interesting thing is that between her and I, that covers almost 12 years. Both lieutenant governors, myself in my first term and next to the incoming governor and her in the last two, neither one was even asked a question during this investigation, which I think in itself is telling.
Okay, we have a follow-up from Patty Singer.
Hi, just listening to you answering Brian just made me think of a thing like, so what's the object lesson here? I mean, women in the workplace and women not in the workplace, women in their homes have been dealing with this kind of behavior for far too long. How do we know that what's happened here is going to have any lasting change in the experience of women in the workplace, in school, and anywhere public where they have to deal with this kind of behavior from men. I mean, he becomes a private citizen, and yet this behavior continues.
Well, first of all, Patty, I think the greatest antidote to this kind of behavior is what we've seen, where women spoke up, and there are women who spoke up at great peril to themselves, where they worked and where they were at that time, who took positions that, quite frankly, were all courageous. The only woman I know in that whole episode is on a list. The other ones all worked in the state government after I left, after my term. And Anna, I only knew, I met her perhaps once or twice. She was a New York State fellow, but I have enormous respect for Anna. And I look at what the most important thing to stop this behavior is to make sure it's never accepted, it's never hidden, it's never condoned in any way. I mean, the state sexual harassment laws are very clear. I take the tests, I watch the videos, we have standards we accept in the private sector. I would say any CEO who is accused of things like this would not be a CEO for very long. And either a resignation or termination would take place. So the most important thing is, if any lesson is, there's two things. First of all, intent does not matter. What my intent is, it has no bearing. It's what the receiver feels. It's what the impact on that person is, be it male or female. So intent is not an excuse. Ignorance is not an excuse. So it's how a person feels. So I think everyone in the workplace has to be especially sensitive to that. And you know what? People have to say that, and be able to say, you make me very uncomfortable. I don't want to be kissed. I don't want to be hugged. I don't want anybody touching me. I think that, I know, the governor's been one. He's gregarious. He hugs men and women. I get that. But sometimes people accept it and love it. Sometimes people recoil. And I think we have to act in a way, and it's a great lesson for people in public life and in the private sector as well, is that to listen, to make sure everyone's actions, from the CEO down to the last employee, respect people in the workplace, men and women. Men can be harassed as much as women in any environment. To me, it's intolerable. And the tone is set at the top. The tone is set by the CEO, the leader in any organization, from a small business to the state of New York to the federal government. You set that tone and you reinforce it, and it's unacceptable. And if this went on, and I've said this, my 4 years there, nobody even came to me or my staff as a rumor. Nobody even spoke of it. So whether it happened then, I can't say. By saying that, I can never say it did not happen. I could say that we had absolutely zero information where anybody came, talked about it, or even rumors. And I had a very young staff. It never came up, not even once in my 4 years there. But, I think leaders have to keep reinforcing it. I'll speak for a chamber. We're a relatively small organization. We have business lines. I have a great HR director. It's reinforcing what is right. It's meeting with employees. It's having people feel comfortable coming forward. And nobody should ever have to deal with being treated disrespectfully in an undignified manner, or maybe accepting things that the sender might think is okay, but the receiver does not, because it is a receiver in the impact, which is most important. And we have to get that. And like anything, Patty, no one issue is going to take away all the problems. It has to be consistently reinforced. And again, the laws are very clear. In terms of what is the state training videos are very good, very clear. We reinforce that. We take it. I've taken every test. And you know what? Even though I think I'm pretty good in terms of understanding all those issues, you take it again and again to reinforce it, to make sure that it's inculcated everything that we do. And it's not going to go away with a resignation or change or a law. It goes away with leadership. It goes away with behaviors. It goes away with exemplifying the courage we saw people coming up who raised that. And I would say anyone, male or female, who raises this in a workplace or government that goes against one of their leaders shows great courage. And you know what? Whistleblowers should be protected. And so I think it's going to be a constant issue of leadership, of listening, of making sure that it's not acceptable. And when these things happen, you address it and root it out ASAP.
Thank you.
All right, any final question? All right, thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks a lot.